This morning, I'd like to speak to us from the theme, a divine talent show. A divine talent show. This parable of Jesus, as all parables, is fundamentally told to help the hearer understand something about their relationship to God, to Jesus, to the empire of God, which is the community of folk who follow in the way of Jesus, or some combination of all three. Now, the basic parable itself talks about the responsibility, the accountability, the stewardship, if you will, of each of the disciples for the investment that their master made in them. And that's the message to us. What is our responsibility? How are we accountable? In what way do we show good stewardship of the investment that God has made in you? So by now you've picked up the reality that this is a stewardship sermon. Yes, I know I was only scheduled to preach one, but the lectionary made me do it. This passage was on the schedule today and it's just too good to pass up. Now, Jesus uses in his parable an example of a man and his financial managers, if you will. And to one of his financial managers, he gave 5 talents. Now, a talent was a sum of money. And it might translate today into $1 million. Who knows? It was a lot of money. And so to one of his financial managers, he gave $1 million. To the second financial manager, he gave $400,000. And to the last financial manager, he gave $100,000. And he gave them these talents according to their abilities. So he didn't expect the $100,000 person to do what the $1 million person did, but he did expect the $100,000 person to do what the $100,000 person could do. Now, I know what you're thinking. He gave the kids $5. What's he going to give me? Well, I'm not handing out any silver bars this morning. The Christmas carol is not silver bars, it's silver bells. No, each of you is a steward or manager for what God has already invested in you in the way of your gifts, your talent, and your resources. So in the story, the man goes away and each steward or manager invests an amount, and when the rich person comes back, an accounting is due. And you know the story. And so what I want to really focus on this morning is what kind of steward, what kind of disciple, what kind of manager are you for the investment that God has made in you, for the gifts, the talents, the resources that God has given to you? What have you done with it? And you know, it's interesting when you read the parable, it does not matter how talented you are. Only what you have done with the talent that you have been given by God. You're not asked to be like somebody else. You're not asked to be like some great world leader. You're not asked to be anybody but you. You're asked, what has God given me? And whatever it is, that's all God expects of you, is what you have to give. Now note well, the disciple who had 5 talents and the disciple who had 2 talents both received the exact same praise from the master. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I'll give you a whole bunch. It's the same praise, whether you have 5 talents or 2. It's what you do with what you have. You're not comparing yourself to anyone else, and neither does the divine one. What can you do? What gifts do you have that can be a blessing to others? You see, God has given everybody something. Every person is gifted in their own unique and divine way. So all of us, from the smallest child to the eldest senior, all of us have something to give back to God. You are God's divine talent show. And so all we want to know is, what's your talent? What's your gift? And that's the message of this parable. Now, in the parable, the man went away for a long time. And this was a message that the early church took to understand that that was the time after Jesus was crucified, after he was gone. The church was still there. And they were going to be there for a long time. Because by the time the Gospels were written, they had figured out that Jesus wasn't coming right back. And so they had to figure out, what are we called to do in this interim time? What are we called to do until Jesus returns? And that call is simply this: to do the ministry of the one that we call Jesus of Nazareth. The church was to carry on in that ministry of love and compassion and justice. And that every disciple, every community had been blessed and gifted with talents and resources in order to carry on that ministry of Jesus. So what part can you do? We did send out a pledge card over a month ago, and that pledge card was 2 parts. So this really isn't the second stewardship sermon, it's part 2. Part 1, we did ask you to give of your financial resources. But we are also asking you to give of your talent, of your gift. Now, we sent out a list of things that are a suggestion that might help you call up some of your gifts. And it might seem simple to make a casserole until you're the one who's recovering at home, until you're so sick that you can't stand at the stove long enough to fix a meal, until that time when that casserole arrives on your door. It might seem simple. It might seem like nothing until you're the one to receive it. Organizing records, providing child care, hosting coffee hour, donating flowers to beautify the sanctuary, tending our garden, donate food to the pantry, help to clean up and build up the church. Tom's in charge of that. He's always looking for volunteers, always. You know, whether you are a greeter, an usher, a deacon, a trustee, visit the sick, or help someone with a ride to the doctor's office, or whatever little thing you do, do something. And these are just the little things that can be done here at the church as we continue the compassionate and loving ministry of Jesus. This list is hardly exhaustive. Maybe you have a call, maybe you have a gift that you want to offer as a new ministry at this church. Let us know. But there are things that we need you to do in order to continue to function as a church. The cabinet will be meeting tomorrow, and the nominating committee will be meeting after that. And we are going to be asking some of you, maybe for the first time, or maybe just for a time to repeat, we're going to be asking you to fill the boards, to fill the committees, to fill the offices that this church has, because we need everyone in order to be the church that God has called us to be. So we need deacons, we need trustees, and we really, really need a treasurer. Is there anybody here that's good with finances? We really, really need a treasurer. Amen, Nancy? So when you are called on, when you are asked, please say yes. Don't bury your talent. Don't bury your talent. Because this is where the analogy and the metaphor break down. You see, the servant in the story buried his talent, and when the master came back, he dug it up and he gave it back to him. It doesn't work that way with your unique gift. If you bury your talent, it's gone. There's no digging it up. If you live your life without giving what God has blessed you with to the world, that gift is gone. We can't dig it up and give it back. Not even God can take your talent and give it to someone else. It remains with you, quiet, buried, unused, dormant. And we suffer. The church suffers. The world suffers for your failure to give your talent to the world. And you suffer. You suffer because you are not fulfilled in your life. There's a passage in Ezekiel where God has commanded him to preach, but he's so mad at his church, at his nation, that he refuses to preach. And after a long time of refusing to preach, he says, I can't hold it in any longer. It's become like fire shut up in my bones. That's the way it is with you. If you don't give your gift, it will gnaw and eat away at you, because every gift is called to come out. We live to give. And when we stop giving, we die. So look inside. Find your gift and give it to the world. Do your part as a disciple, fulfilling the ministry of love and justice that is the mission of Jesus of Nazareth. We need each of you, and God has blessed all of you with talents and gifts that only you possess and that you must give, that the world might be blessed through you. Let the people of God say, amen.